You are the author of the Neuropsychiatric Inventory. It's described as the most commonly used tool characterizing behavioral disturbances and dementia syndromes. I dare say there are probably few on the planet who know more about dementia or Alzheimer's than you do. Where do we stand in our progress against these diseases?
Well, I have the feeling that we're making genuine progress. We have seen, for example, for the first time, drugs that are actively removing the toxic protein of Alzheimer's disease from the brain. It's taken us a long time to get to this place. We're beginning to conceptualize the appropriateness of combination therapy, combination therapies that have prevailed in HIV and cancer and tuberculosis, and yet we've never had combination therapy in Alzheimer's disease. So we're starting to begin to plan those kinds of trials. We have at our hands greater tools, better tools for looking at the brain than we've ever had before. So I can do a brain scan now and see whether the person has the plaques of Alzheimer's disease in the brain. And then I can give them a drug and I can see whether the plaques are reduced. We've never had a tool like that before. Now we have a very similar tool for neurofibrillary tangles, which is the other major pathology of Alzheimer's disease.
Well, that falls very nicely into my next question, because last year you were the subject of an article called Your Brain in 10 Years, where you outlined the future in the pursuit of brain health, and it was quite hopeful. One of the keys to that future was repurposed drugs. What does that mean?
A repurposed drug is a drug that has been approved for some non-Alzheimer use, but has some chemical properties that we think will make it very useful in Alzheimer's disease. We're currently doing 2 of these drugs. So we've just completed testing a drug called bexarotene, which was approved for cancer, but it had properties, it stimulated cells in a way that we thought would be very, very useful for Alzheimer's disease. We've completed the studies, but I don't have the analyses complete yet,
Okay.
so I cannot tell you the answer today, but it's a great example of a repurposed compound. Now we're just starting in the next few weeks a trial of a drug that was approved for Parkinson's disease, but the chemistry of that drug makes you think that it would be even more powerful than it would in Alzheimer's disease than in Parkinson's disease. So we're repurposing that drug for study in Alzheimer's disease, and we're just about to start that trial.
You mentioned the genetic aspect of the transmission of Alzheimer's through generations. Are there groups that are more susceptible, more likely to contract Alzheimer's than others?
Yes, so there are definite risk profiles. The most powerful are age. So the older the person is, the more likely they are to have Alzheimer's disease, and genetics. So a person who has a positive family history is more likely to get this disease than someone who does not. And we know which genes are active in that. We could actually test somebody, but the tests tell us who's at risk, not necessarily who is going to get it. So we don't usually use those tests clinically. Head injury is a risk for Alzheimer's disease. Low education is a risk for Alzheimer's disease. A Mediterranean diet reduces your risk for Alzheimer's disease. Exercise reduces your risk for Alzheimer's disease. So we do have a profile of factors that make it more likely or less likely to get Alzheimer's disease. And we're just initiating a new program to make sure that people know what it is that they can do to reduce their risk as much as possible for getting Alzheimer's disease.